All right, welcome back in another episode of Indiebnb. Today I'm joined by Corren Cavini out of the Netherlands. Corren, how is the
Yes.
future? How is 2 o'clock? What am I in store for?
If it's anything like here, it's very, very warm. And it's one of probably the hottest days of the year in the Netherlands. Also one of the longest, of course. So yeah, it could be worse. I like warm weather. We don't get that much of it here. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. Get your short sleeve shirts. Get out to the pool. I love it.
exactly. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, obviously, you are in a DJ who is, on the come up. Like
Yeah.
this whole thing started. I saw Nora En Pure in Montreal, and you opened for her, and I was struck whenever you started, playing some beats. So I had to get in and get curious on you. So that set in particular, like, what do you remember, individually about Montreal? I know I think you were on tour with her for a few stops, right?
Yeah, yeah. So every now and then, like I do my own shows, and then but now and then I tour with her and do like a couple of support shows in a row. And of course, with the label Purify, we do a lot together as well. Yeah, that Montreal show, man. Pwah. I mean, everybody says every crowd is their favorite crowd, right? But
Yeah.
Montreal is definitely up there. And the funny thing is, I hear this from every DJ that goes to Montreal. Several clubs of Montreal just have that reputation of having like one of the best crowds in the world. And funny thing is, I played Montreal once, like half a year before, I think, maybe something like that. And that was also a good show. But this
Hmm.
show, I was expecting, like, usually when you warm up for a bigger act, it's kind of like you have to really work the crowd. And but here it was so natural. People were so locked in. And yeah, for me, it was absolutely amazing. One of those shows where everything just clicks. I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw another artist like across town. So like I was on a work trip, and like they were like, "Oh, hey, like you can do whatever you want at night." And I was like, "All right, well it's our last night, my last night, so I'm gonna go." I went and saw Chloe Keisha across town, and then
Hmm.
I took an Uber over, and I caught Nora at New City Gas. I mean, I love that place. The lights were, unbelievable, and like
It's an incredible
just
club. Yeah.
yeah, just a different vibe. I mean, for you, like whenever you walk in somewhere like that, or like how important is like the lighting, the all of those different elements to that, kind of bring to life your show a little bit.
A lot. It's very important. But I would say it's not one of those things is very important, but it's like all of them adding up together to make an amazing atmosphere, right? It's not
Hmm.
just lighting that needs to be good. It needs to every tiny detail that's better improves the whole
Yeah.
experience by even more. Like I'll always notice, like, of course a good crowd helps, but a crowd gets more into it if the lighting person is very on in there, and if the sound is too low, people won't be in there. But on a place like this, everything is on point, and also like the tiny details that make you feel more comfortable as an artist.
Hmm.
For example, at New City Gas, but also at plenty of other clubs, I noticed that's very on point. Like having a of course, having a dressing room is nice, but the one dressing room is a bit different from the other, and somewhere where you feel really comfortable and where all of those details are on point just makes you that 20% more confident on stage and more locked in and less worried about things you shouldn't be worried about and more just
Hmm.
present and in the moment. And yeah, in New City Gas, it definitely was the case because,
Yeah.
like you said, all of the details are on point there.
Yeah. How, like, when you're creating a set list for, a show like that, like, is it, how do you determine like what you're gonna play, like you're mixing? I mean, because like, in traditional world, like a DJ is somebody who, obviously is, bringing together like a lot of different songs and genres. And, I've seen a few different DJs, Fred again, like he played like a G6 and remixed it with something else. And then there's also, of course, the songs you create and you work hard for. So like, how do you kind of determine, and is it something on a case by case basis, or is it something that you kind of figure out before the tour and then rip into, or what is it?
it's a little bit of everything, but I would say it's case by case. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially as I started coming up in the Netherlands, I played a lot of like more the traditional DJ shows where it's not so much about you as a headliner and your music, but more about feeling out a crowd and building a long
Mm-hmm.
bow of tension. And those are like sometimes 3 hour sets and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's shows like these ones on tour where I have just 1 hour, and I know there's also like maybe not the entire crowd knows me, but there's quite a couple of people that know me and specific tracks of mine which they want to hear. So for a set like this one in New City Gas in Montreal, I did do a bit more preparation, and I'll never have everything exactly laid out because I need to have room to improvise.
Yeah.
That's for me, it's a key part of DJing. But that said, I'll definitely have like quite a couple of markers, like around this point in the set, I should probably play this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I noticed for myself, the shorter a set gets, the less room for improvisation I leave myself. And this is honestly, if I could choose, I would almost always play extended sets, like at least 2 to 3 hours, because
Mm-hmm.
that gives me a longer time to tell a bigger story.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, short sets can be amazing as well as this one was in New City Pass.
I love it. I love it. Like when you're, yeah, I mean, you're standing up there for 3 hours when you do your 3 hour set. Like, I mean, like, how do you prepare for that? I mean, like, if you guys asked me to stand up for 3 hours, like, I'm gonna be pretty tired. I mean, like, I don't know, like, what kind of physical fitness are we rolling in for DJing? You know?
I mean, physically, I mean, I am working out a bit more now, but really that was never necessary because I guess it's
Yeah.
just pure adrenaline pulling you
Mm-hmm.
through. When I played my first all night long set, we started by saying, let's do 6 hours, and it ended up being like 8.5 hours. And whilst you're playing, of course, I'll have like some sports drinks and some nutrition bars and those types of things. But really, really the adrenaline just pulls you through. And as I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it, and I'll usually play sober, as I'm doing it, I won't notice anything of being tired. But then once you stop, of course, and you sit down, that's
Yeah.
when everything breaks down, and it does take a little bit of time to recover. And especially when I play longer sets, but really for any set, especially if I play at night, I'll try to just spend the day. I can't sleep a day properly, but I'll be in bed watching
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, The Office or something that really requires zero brain capacity.
I love it. I love it. That's how you get prepared. What for you, like when you're, again, I'm older, like, right? The sets
Hmm.
are late, like they go, till
Yeah,
1, 2, 3 in the morning. Like, you mentioned you're kind of like just kind of vegging out office wise, but like after, like, so New City Gas, like you probably have to go. You probably left there and you had to go. Did you go right to the hotel, go to bed, or are you like did you hang out, after that one, or like what was kind of the
kind
routine
of.
there?
I guess that's kind of a case to case
Yeah,
basis, depending on what my schedule for the next day is looking like. Of course, is a big
sure.
factor. But also, is it an environment where I know people that I'm comfortable around? Am I in the mood to hang out for a little bit? But yeah, quite often after shows, it will be just going to bed and chilling
Yeah.
out. But every now and then, there will be an opportunity where we have a couple of DJ friends or friends from the scene or whatever, and we can stay hanging out for a
Get
little
after
bit.
it.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's also a bit, we're human after all. So one day we'll feel like partying, and the other day we just feel like going to bed.
I feel like it's like kind of like you're in an environment where it's like, I can see how there's some people who like you would DJ and then you like you get off stage and it's like you just want to keep going because it's like you're like you said, the adrenaline is, you're ripping through
Yeah,
you as you're done. So I can see how it can kind of get off the rails. So it's cool to hear
yeah,
hey, like I dial it back and I'm done after, a lot of them.
yeah, yeah. Although for me, it's not like a very conscious decision. Like I need to take care of myself. It's just compared to some other people in the industry that I know, I'm naturally relatively chill. When I'm playing, another side of my personality comes out, like a Jekyll and Hyde type of thing.
Yeah.
But really, after shows, sometimes I'll be in a party mood, but honestly, it's
Hmm.
just not really naturally. the vibe that I'm always in. So yeah,
Got it. Got
for
it.
I
Well,
like just hanging out and then going to bed and actually having the energy to see something of the city where I am or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Um, well, a couple of the tracks you played, Wadi Dana, I believe Hopes and Fears you played,
Yeah.
in Montreal, like, when you're creating, and of course you have the new one Lion's Head out that just came out, this past Friday, and obviously that'll be linked below so people can go check that out. When you're creating these, the original tracks and producing those, like, take me through the process, for, Lion's Head, for example, like how did that become something, like where do you start?
Um, yeah, really for me, it's a bit of a cliche, but it is true. It always starts with a feeling. Like,
Hmm.
of course, I'll at some point I'll include a piano or a guitar or whatever, but really what it starts with quite often is me trying to put a feeling into sound, um, and to make it a bit more concrete. Quite often that will be me starting just by turning a field recording of a memory that I have, dragging that into Ableton, looping it as a drone, and then starting to improvise some piano on top. And especially in situations like, for example, with Lion's Head, where I have a very specific memory that I'm trying to turn into a song, it can take me a very, very, very long time to actually figure out how that memory should sound. So with Lion's Head, it's like a reference to a memory that I had from one of the first international tours I did in Cape Town in South Africa. Like, one second, there's a. Uh, can you hear all of the
Oh
sirens
yeah,
coming
I
by?
can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the fire sirens can be particularly loud. Sorry about that.
Yeah. All good.
Um,
All good.
no, so specifically with Lion's Head, I was in South Africa like 1.5 years ago and was one of my first international tours. And together with Nora, we hiked Lion's Head, which is the mountain that's like almost on the seaside. And if you're on top of the mountain, you see like a 360 view, and you see the Table Mountain behind you, and you see the capes of Cape Town around you, and then on the other side you see the ocean. And we did this during sunset, so that was just an incredible memory
Oh my
that I knew
goodness.
from that moment. Okay, I'm going to try to capture this feeling into song. But then after that, it starts with, okay, let me try to figure out a melody that feels like this, and then write another one, and then write another one. And especially with this track, I might have 30 projects on my computer that are all called Lion's Head, but then all of them and it eventually become Lion's Head. No, this is not it. Lion's Head, this is not it. Until eventually it sort of clicks, and I find the
Hmm.
melodies that work together to evoke the feeling that I want to evoke with that song.
Wow. So when you're like starting to, when you figure out the melody, like again, I've played around. I have not like, I've tried to create, in garage, again, I'm playing around in GarageBand, not, Ableton or any of these, advanced softwares, but like I can imagine there's just a ton of buttons and things you can do and layer in and like, yeah, like I could take that horn we just heard on the, in there and put it in here. Like,
Yeah.
how is it you get that feeling, you start to, you put the thing in there and then like, where do you start layering? Like what is the, what do you start bass first? Do you start kind of in the, the higher, part of the, the elements? Like
I
where does it start?
with this I can be extremely chaotic. So especially if I have a
Yeah.
melody that I'm enthusiastic about already, I'll just go into this creative explosion mode where I'll fill up my
Yeah.
project with 1,000 ideas, and there's no structure to it. So my project looks like there's an absolute madman that's been working in my Ableton. And I'll just let all of that flow. So I don't know, I might have
Hmm.
this melody that I played on piano first, and then I'll try it on 20 different synthesizers and on some strings and on some, because the possibilities when you're producing in a computer are almost literally endless, right? Which
Yeah.
is amazing and also a danger. So what I like to do is just allow myself that kind of, let's call it a creative explosion mode. Let all of that flow out, and be like, whatever, this project's messy. And then after the creativity sort of fades away, and the next day maybe I'll be a bit sharper and more objective, I'll go through all
Hmm.
of those ideas and then curate something that might or might not sound good from that. And really, this is for me what the whole creative process is like. It's like exploding ideas and then sort of cutting them back until it's something that's not too overwhelming. But I do like to make very rich soundscapes and layer tracks. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Are most of the songs you create, like, hopes and fears and Wadi Dana, like, were those all like kind of inspired by, you were inspired by hiking a mountain for Lion's Head, so like, for those two,
yeah.
like, are they similar, like, well, where do those come from? Because like, again, like, if you're having these feelings, I'm like, man, like, what's the stem, what's the, the stimulus that's getting those?
Yeah. For me, music is a very personal and primal and emotional thing. So it will almost never happen that I have a song that I just think sounds cool. In the end,
Hmm.
it should sound cool, but that's almost never initially where it comes from. It's usually an expression of some emotion that I'm feeling. Sometimes it's anxiety that I'm feeling. Sometimes it's a memory that I'm trying to capture, and that can go in very different ways. So, for example, Wadi Dana you mentioned, that's a very concrete example. Wadi Dana is a valley in Jordan where I visited it. I think like 3 years ago. Met some absolutely amazing people there. It was like a really beautiful experience to me, and I turned that into a track. Actually, it might be 5 6 years ago. I don't remember.
Hmm.
But for example, with hopes and fears, that's kind of the other side of it, where that didn't come from something specific. It just came from a feeling that I had. I remember because last year I released my debut album, which was an amazing process. It took me around the world. It got me in touch with so many people, and especially because that was like a very personal. It was basically working out a trauma into an album, and then that came
Hmm.
into the world, and people reacted to it incredibly. But that also led me to, for the first time, tour the world, see so many things, which I thought was, of course, it's an amazing experience, but it also comes with anxiety and fears and seeing dreams come true all at the same time. And in the
Yeah.
case of hopes and fears, that was really something that I noticed that maybe struggling isn't the right word, but it definitely was very weighed heavy on me. Like the trying to balance enjoying the dreams coming true, but also manage the fear of having something beautiful that you can then lose,
Yeah.
and all of those are big emotions, so also for that one it took quite a while to figure out how to actually turn it into a song, but then eventually, through really a similar process that I already mentioned, slowly but surely you figure out how to blend all of that together. Yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, are you like, do you feel like do you have a background in like piano? Like, because I feel like a lot of your tracks, when you listen to them, there's a lot of kind of melodic, piano play. And I'm always curious, with also your tracks, like sometimes they have words, sometimes they don't, right? Like, I guess, is that just a depending on the feeling kind of thing? And, how do you kind of source that stuff?
Yeah. So my musical journey didn't start with electronic music. When I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 10 years old, I was absolutely obsessed with Red Hot Chili Peppers and Green Day. So initially I was like, I'm going to be the biggest guitar player in the world. I'm going to be the next John
Yeah.
Frusciante. That was me, like, I don't know, what is it now, 20 years ago, something like that. But somewhere along the way, I found electronic music and I started diving into the into the computer world of it. And in the
Hmm.
meantime, like I'd had guitar lessons for like 8 years, but slowly but surely I started losing interest in guitar. And we always had a piano in the house, and I never had any piano
Uh,
lessons. But from starting to be like with two pointing fingers trying to figure out a melody, slowly but surely I sort of taught myself like some basic chords, and
hmm.
then when I went to after high school, I actually went to study music production, which of course is mainly focused on the production aspect of it. But there we also had um, some courses that are like fully on music theory. I have one
Sure.
piano course, so I'm not like a real good piano player, but I definitely have learned like a lot of the basics, and also with regards to how harmony works, how to build harmony. That is something that I can work out in my brain even before I'm behind the computer. Maybe a bit too much, so I would even say.
Yeah, I can imagine like you have a feeling, you start building something like, and like you said, you have the mind explosion, and you push all of it out, like, and the fact
Yeah.
you've got like, do you ever play guitar on any of your tracks? Like, do you have any that you feel like, you ever kind of return to that a little bit, or not really?
I'm starting to try to again, but honestly, I was never a talented guitar player. That
Hmm.
just never was the case, but I love playing guitar. But I've barely touched the guitar in like 10 years. So actually recently I've started trying to again and seeing if there are ways in which I could implement that into my music in a cool way. But then I'm noticing like it's gonna take a lot of practice, because before I can play some smooth riffs again, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, Do you think like, you're obviously you're come up, in the DJ scene, you mentioned it a few times, but like you came up in the Netherlands. Like, what are the, what does that track look like? Because oftentimes I talk to indie bands here in Atlanta, in Atlanta and other places, and like, it's very much like, hey, we played the 200 cap room, we came back, we toured again, and we kind of, built it up. Hey, we're streaming, we're gonna do the waterfall release, like, for you,
Yeah.
like, as a DJ, how similar or different is it to that journey, and like, what has been your kind of start there?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of similar in that
Hmm.
almost nobody, exceptions being over there, almost nobody starts by headlining the big room, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think you should, because
Hmm.
if your first show is headlining the big room, you're probably not ready. So for me, it was the same. At some point, I was a 15-year-old kid obsessed with DJing and the big DJs. Like that was around the era where the Dutch DJs internationally were blowing up
Yeah.
really, really, really strongly. So I was just obsessed with doing it. And I come from a tiny town in the Netherlands, where not a lot of interesting stuff happens, but there was basically one place where DJs played. So I started trying to play there every now and then. And eventually I got chances there, but it was musically really not where I belonged. But you gotta start somewhere. And then slowly I started trying to organize my first party. First one was a big flop, even though I learned a lot from it. And then, slowly but surely you start learning how it works. And all of this was before my actual artist profile that I'm playing with now actually started growing. So that was like my first main releases were just before COVID. So I started getting some momentum, and then got knocked back, both in my career but also mentally through COVID. And then after COVID, I started, through the labels with which I released, started getting some chances to play warm-up shows for artists that are
Hmm.
affiliated with that same label. Started getting noticed. And then, for example, there's one of my favorite clubs in the Netherlands, at Sieraad in Amsterdam. um, I started getting, first I got a chance to open up there on a not so interesting night, and then I got another slot, playing a longer opening slot on a more interesting night, and slowly you grow to
Yeah.
doing bigger and bigger and bigger things, step by step. So um, I guess that's kind of how it is. And then similarly for international touring, it took quite a while before I started getting booked anywhere internationally, but at a certain moment, some promoter that's really into this specific niche of electronic music that I'm in and noticed me, and I played in Brazil for the first time. And then I did my first few releases with Purified, which is the label I do most
Yeah.
of my releases with now. And then we started doing more and more shows with them as well, like initially
Hmm.
in Europe, but then last August, I got my visa for the US. So now we're starting to do more US and North America shows as well. So That's a really long way of saying it's a very step by step process. And I think that's how it was for me. But for everybody, this goes differently because you might get an opportunity here or there, and that may or may not lead you somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
it can take very many forms. The common thread, I think, through all of them is that you need to be present and work hard, and all of those
Yeah.
cliches, which are big cliches, but cliches are usually true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like it's interesting. You come, you like you start in this, like, you're at 15, and like it's like not like a overnight success. Like there's no, you didn't like hit it large on some track. It was
No,
mainly, hey, you grinded and you kind of made your way through.
yeah.
And when you got involved in the last question before we get into the the Pete Peterson party pack, but like when you got with Nora, and kind of started you guys are both kind of a soundscape, like very deep, rich kind of music, like how did that come about? Did it just did it just fit for you, or is it did they approach you for Purified, or like what was kind of the process there?
Um, Also, there it was a bit step by step. Like I was already releasing music with other labels, and I
Yeah.
remember, I don't exactly remember how it started, but I think she started playing one of those in her sets every now and then.
Hmm.
At which point, of course, I sent her a DM saying like, "Hey, thank you for supporting my music." Um, and then slowly but surely we got in touch. I think we ran into each other once or twice on festivals and had like very brief little interactions. One of the first shows I played after COVID was where I opened for her and Ilke Klein. And there we kind of met backstage and had a few chats. And I think we both noticed like, oh yeah, there's some kind of, we're on the same wavelength,
Yeah.
sorry, here. And then we did at some point we decided, okay, I have these tracks that fit with Purified. Maybe we should try to do a release together. And right off the bat, like from the first release, it just worked on every possible level. So from that point on, it's been onwards and upwards, really, where it just makes a lot of sense. Like our musical tastes align very well, our personal values align very well, which is really important to me and the people that I work with. Um, and yeah, all of the shows that I've played with Purified have been absolutely amazing. I think because very naturally the people that are attracted to those events are people that also share my taste of music. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It just it came to be also a bit step by step, but at a certain point you notice like, yeah, there's a real connection here, and this just works. So let's keep working together for quite a while.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Well, we'll rip into the Pete Peterson party pack of questions here as we kind of
All right.
transition off. I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that. So we'll get it. Yeah, get warmed up here. But here we go. We'll run it through. Corren Cavini, cake or pie? What do you prefer?
Bye.
Pie. All right. All right.
Bye. Yeah. Although I think that this differentiation between cake and pie is maybe not exactly the same it is in the US as it is over here. So it's a bit of a difficult, but I would say pie.
Pie. Okay. Salad or soup?
Salad.
Salad. All right. All right. Sunrise or
Yeah.
sunset? What are you seeing more of these days?
Sunset still.
Sunset
Although
still.
I do love a sunrise.
I love it. All right. A little bit of an American one here. Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Touchdown, I guess.
Touchdown. I got you. Are you having more nights in or nights out these days?
Nights in. I'm
Nights in.
getting old.
I love it. When you do go out and you're after a show and you're deciding to hang around, like they DJ plays a particular song you love, like you're more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor.
The robot. I'm not
Robot.
that athletic. I couldn't do a worm if I tried.
I love it. I love it. All right, guacamole or queso at your favorite Mexican place?
Guacamole. Yeah.
Guacamole. I love it. All right, waffles or pancakes?
Pancakes.
Pancakes. All
Yeah.
right, coffee or tea with your pancakes?
coffee.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Cats. All right. Do you
Yeah.
more identify with a ninja or a pirate?
A ninja?
Ninja. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
Chips or pretzels? Meaning chips, meaning like potato chips.
Yeah. Chips. Yeah.
Chips. All right. French fries or tots?
You're gonna have to tell me what thoughts are.
Tots are the potatoes. They're like this small. They're like a form of French fry, but they're like the like
Oh,
kind of
they're
ground
they're
up
like
version.
yeah yeah yeah.
Tater
I think
tots.
we call them we would call them potato croquettes probably.
Yes.
I would say French fries. Yeah.
French fries. Okay. Um, TV show or a movie after a long day of producing.
TV show.
TV
Although
show.
I'm not really that big on either, to be honest.
Gotcha. Are aliens real?
Yes, but very much depending on how you define aliens.
I love it. All right. If you were a fruit, what kind of fruit would you be?
Um, an apple? I have no idea. An apple is the first thing that comes to mind.
I like it. I like it. Is love at first sight real?
Um, Depending on how you, yes, let's say
Yeah.
yes.
I love it. All right. And who are two people, two artists, DJs who we might not know that we ought to check out?
I love this question. One is definitely Myrne, Myrne. He's absolutely amazing. And the other one that comes to mind is Jay Ribbon. Can I name a third?
Jay Ribbon. Of course.
That would be All Night. I also love what she does.
All night.
Yeah.
All right. So we got Mern, Jay Ribbon, and All Night. I love it. All right, we'll have to
Yeah.
get them going when we get out to the pool here today. I'm gonna have
All
to.
three of those, amazing. Yeah.
All right, awesome, man. Well, Corren Cavini, thank you so much for taking the time here. We'll
Of course.
everybody link down below. We've got his website as well as the links to Lion's Head, which he spoke about earlier. So go stream that. If he's coming to your city here in the States, which sounds like could be soon, go check him out. It is worth the price of admission. I can guarantee it because I've seen it. So, Corren,
Amazing.
thank you so much for taking the time this morning, and look forward to seeing you hopefully in Atlanta soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I hope so. I hope so
Yeah,
for sure.
love it. I love it.